Over the appointment of Mary Wambui to the position of chair of the National Employment Authority. The president had his remarks yesterday, but Senator Johnson Sakaja, the man who started this whole organization off, actually released a statement today differing with her appointment, says he has confidence in her ability to serve Kenyans, but in a different capacity, not as the vision carrier and chairperson of the National Employment Authority. He goes as far as to say he has instructed his lawyers, as well as those of the Kenya Young Parliamentarian Association, to file a petition seeking to quash her appointment, going as far as to ask her to relinquish the position. Now, of course, we will be speaking to him. Aside from all of that, it gives us a moment for pause to talk about the National Employment Authority. We will be speaking with him from Belgrade, as well as Kwame Owino, who is an economist with the Institute for Economic Affairs, on this body. But first, let's get to our explainer tonight. All of the issues aside that we have heard today, is this a body that we need? I want to speak now first to Senator Sakaja, Johnson Sakaja of Nairobi County. He is the brainchild of this organization from 2015. He joins me now from Belgrade, Serbia, where he is on parliamentary business. Thank you for joining us on the program tonight. Let's just start by asking, a lot of the language here, they say, cannot necessarily compel organizations to employ people or to help them on internship, and that it doesn't go far enough. Is this body capable of solving the issue of unemployment in this country?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. One, there is no law that can, on its own solve a problem like unemployment. And when you legislate, you don't become so prescriptive in terms of, the day-to-day running, and which is why all of these institutions need to have the right people who are able to take just the generally descriptive provisions of the law and now implement based on the vision that they have. The National Employment Authority is fashioned just like many other employment authorities across the world. You have Job Centre Plus in the UK, you have the Australian version of it, you have one in the States. And what they generally do, number one, is to provide information. Unemployment cannot be the biggest problem in Kenya, yet today no one will tell you how many unemployed nurses are in Nyeri, or how many unemployed geologists do we have in this area, or how many are seeking work in Kitale, etc. So the first thing was to create job centers across the country where all these young people who are looking for jobs can come and get into that national database, so that you have a repository to know these are the kind of skills out there, and these are the people who require work. Number two, because as you know, government does not create jobs. Government creates an environment for which to streamline access into the job market, and for which through the economy jobs can be created. So based on this information that they have, and if you look at the structure of the board, then you'll have the employers, the manufacturers, KEPSA, you have government, you have academia, for them to sit down and say, look, guys, a lot of the people unemployed are studying these courses. These are the gaps in the market. These are the kind of skills we need. So you have the skills matching that is, that is happening, within this authority, so that we can change the curriculum. We can decide which are the courses that we need to teach in our universities. Number three, a lot of young people who, once they finish school or they're done with any institution of higher learning, they don't know where to start. So people walk around in town with their CVs, and it depends on who do you know. Do you have an uncle who will ask you for your CV, or do you have a relative, or which community are you from? This would create an even playing field for any access into the public sector, and would incentivize the private sector. So somebody who graduates and goes back to Turkana or goes back to Makueni, his name being in the database or her name being in the database gives them the similar chance as somebody who stays in Nairobi and whose parents can access a newspaper every day for them to see job openings. So government will then not again start advertising for all of these openings. So there are many things. When we talk about incentivizing the private sector, the finance bill a few years ago spoke about a tax relief for employers who take on young people 6 months after graduation, less than 6 months after graduation, which is the authority that is supposed to push for the actualization of such proposals from government. It must be the employment authority, and that's why we've really been pushing for the operationalization of this authority to make sure that it's actually effective and that it's actually working. There's a lot that it must do. Soft skills. Many young people don't know how to look for a job. How to upskill, how to streamline their career choice, even from high school, in university. What other course should they take? What is the market needing? And if this NEA was working, then that is what would be going on a day-to-day basis, not just at the constituency. And there was no need for new infrastructure. They just use the Huduma centers and get just a desk and get this information, but also at our universities and at our colleges. That is what NEA actually is supposed to do. So it's not supposed to create jobs on its own, but to make sure that it's streamline access into the job market and help us in future to make sure that we're training people for the right things. We've had a problem with our young girls being mistreated in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, and many of those countries, through the labor attaches around the world. NEA is supposed to be the bridge to make sure that, one, there are no unscrupulous employment bureaus taking our young people there, that it's government to government, and we're able to know where these young people are, because a lot of the opportunities that we see are opportunities that are going to be outside Kenya. If you look at the blue economy, the kind of opportunities that are there, the maritime economy, there's so much out there, but you need a vibrant working association, authority such as this to be able to spearhead these efforts.
Thank you, Senator Sakaja, for Nairobi County, joining us live from Belgrade, Serbia. Thanks for speaking with us. Well, you've heard it from him, Kwame. Is it everything that it's supposed to be? Do we need an authority? Will it solve the problem?
Well, Senator Sakaja has just mentioned that, yes, there's no single institution that can solve the employment problem, and he's correct. But I think before we come up with an institution such as this, let me just state that when this bill was first published, it was first published as the National Youth Employment Authority, before the word youth was dropped, partly because of the view that the problem of unemployment is not only a youth problem. There are many people who've left even university 5 years ago that haven't gotten a job. So it's actually a national problem, not just youth. But the issue is we need to ask ourselves, what are we solving? And I think if you've seen the kind of things that this institution does, I'm not too sure it'll solve it. Why? For the reason that, first and foremost, I think the biggest thing it is doing, I think based on the logic that employers have a problem finding the people they want to employ. Is that a problem? Is that the case? That's not true. I mean, I work at the Institute of Economic Affairs. It's a very, very small institution. And sometimes, even before we place newspaper adverts, right, we put it on our website, and we have people applying, and we are a small institution by no means, applying for jobs from Malaysia, applying for a job in Kenya and Philippines, and we are asking for an analyst or stuff like that. So the idea that in the internet world, people are unable to find job opportunities is completely untrue. The second is just the design of the institution itself. I think that if you wanted to create an opportunity for people to be able to understand where jobs are, and that would be, do you know that our website by the Public Service Commission would do the same thing without necessarily having to put together a whole authority? I think, and I say this with respect, the idea in these countries, when you want to solve a problem that's real, you either think about creating an authority and then throwing money at it, or a task force and then throwing money at it. And this is a typical one in which we've done. So you look at all the terms of reference that it has, and it's unfortunate that we in Kenya are debating about the age of the people on the committee, because you could make somebody who's left university today the chair, right? And it would not solve this problem, because the design is actually responding to something else. And that has been the furor of who's the chair and who is in it. So you're saying regardless of who it is? I think it's very, very unfortunate. If I was going to call the president, or no, let me just say this. If I was going to call the president for something, it wouldn't be that who you've appointed. I would actually say that, look, you're spending hundreds of millions on this institution every year. Why don't you simply ask the Public Service Commission to establish a department, right, within it? Because the Public Service Commission already has structures. Why don't we have
and it is the hiring body in the civil service.
Precisely, managing hundreds of thousands. To expand a database that allows it to collect CVs from everybody, the soft skills that are required for some kind of thing. To establish an entire authority which has been completely nondescript until you appointed somebody that people think is the wrong one. It's been in here since the president signed the bill 3 years ago, is not it. Now, I'm not saying this because I don't. I mean, what I do is I study the economy, and employment is actually the major problem in Kenya. If I was going to compose a team... How would we solve the issue? What are some of the things we would do, if not an authority, in your view? No, I actually think that our problem is a structural problem. We have a structure in the economy that you don't solve by creating an authority.
What does that mean? We have a structure.
The structural problem is this. We have 80% of the people who working in the informal sector and in farms. And we have not had a sufficiently growing sector, service sector and manufacturing specifically to take people, because historically, economic history tells you that's the way it usually goes.
Right.
And in our place, instead, we are having manufacturing and these sectors actually shrinking.
Even with the Big Four agenda.
Even with the Big Four agenda, and that's part of what the Big Four is trying to fix.
Yeah.
So you can create an authority, but for as long as the manufacturing sector relative to others is not growing and other service sectors are not growing, you will have the informal sector as a response. And the informal sector must be respected because many people are going into it.
Right.
So basically, people are finding jobs in the informal sector, and you have instead a model that assumes that everybody will go into the formal structure. In itself tells you that you're trying to solve the problem of a very small minority. Mm-hmm. What you should ask yourself is, when people are working in the informal sector, how do we try to make sure that over time you structurally move people from the informal sector to the formal sector?
Okay.
You do not take a model that has been built in a very highly formalized place, Australia, US, Germany. Come on. How can that be the most relevant model for creating employment in Kenya? It isn't.
Thank you. Kwame Owino, who's from the Institute for Economic Affairs. We thank you for speaking with us. Many thanks as well to Senator Johnson Sakaja, who spoke to us about this organization and whether